Coming up on Network Africa today, a Human Rights Watch report reveals 34 people have been killed in protests this week in Congo. Bilateral relations between Nigeria and the UK are strengthened as the UK government concludes training for Nigeria's Air Force. Plus, the UN reiterates stand by the international community to uphold results of the Gambia elections, imploring on President Yahya Jammeh to also do so. Let's begin Network Africa. Welcome everyone, I am Amarachi Ubani. The Human Rights Watch says security forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo have killed at least 34 people during protests this week. The protesters are angry that President Joseph Kabila refused to step down at the end of his mandate. Congo's capital, Kinshasa, and other cities were hit by violent demonstrations on Tuesday as President Kabila, who has been in power since 2001, reaching the end of his second term in office without an election in place to choose his successor.
In addition to the protest and repression by the security forces, we're also seeing mobilization by armed groups in many parts of the country. Over the past few weeks, armed group leaders have been saying that starting on December 20th, President Kabila would no longer be legitimate, the army and the police were therefore no longer legitimate, and they would take security into their own hands. We've already seen since Monday heavy fighting when a militia attacked in the town of Butembo. At least 13 were reported to be killed in eastern Congo. And then yesterday in the south in Kananga, in the Kasai area, a militia also attacked, and there was heavy fighting during the day yesterday between this militia and the army. In southeastern Congo, in Manono, a Batwa militia attacked, at least 40 people reportedly killed. All of this seems to be linked to President Kabila's continued attempts to extend his delay in power.
Widening for a 24-year-old Tunisian man suspected to have had a hand in the lorry attack at a Christmas market in Berlin on Monday. Police say they found fingerprints of Anis Amri on the door of the truck. 12 people were killed when the lorry plowed through shoppers. 49 more others were injured. Anis's identity card was also found in the lorry. He's said to have entered Germany last year and was due to be deported in June, but stayed because there was a delay in receiving paperwork from Tunisia. The police had reportedly been quite familiar with Anis, as he already had a history of crime, serving 4 years in an Italian prison for arson, and was convicted in absentia in Tunisia for violent robbery. A police notice lists 6 different aliases used by Amri, born on the 22nd of December 1992, who at times tried to pass himself off as Egyptian or Lebanese. The German authorities warn he could be armed and dangerous and are offering a reward of up to 100,000 euros for information leading to his arrest. As the fight against Boko Haram intensifies, the Nigerian army continues to make gains, recapturing most of the territory under Boko Haram control in the past 2 years. Our military says it rescued 1,880 civilians in the past week from areas controlled by the Islamist group. The insurgents have thousands of women and girls in northern Nigeria over the last few years, including 219 schoolgirls from a school in Chibok, 197 of whom are still missing. The army said it has also captured more than 500 insurgents during the same operation in the vast Sambisa forest in the northeast of the country. Now, these figures have not been independently verified, but in recent months, the military has recaptured significant areas of territory previously controlled by the Islamist militants, but Boko Haram continues to stage attacks. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom's military has concluded a training exercise for 206 officers and men of the Nigerian Air Force in the area of counter-insurgency operations. A 6-week training, which held at the Air Force Regiment Training Center in Kaduna State, is part of the ongoing efforts to train local forces to combat Boko Haram terrorists in the northeast. Speaking during the graduation ceremony of the officers and men, head of the UK military team, Wing Commander Michael Formby, says the training has exposed participants to the basics of fieldcraft and close combat.
This is the reenactment of what happens on the war front, where soldiers put their lives at risk to protect their country. The 4-week training is for 206 Nigerian Air Force personnel by a team from the United Kingdom. Comprising fast roping, which is a helicopter drop demonstration, marksmanship, camouflage and concealment, fitness exercises, and evacuation of the wounded.
They were taught how to react to direct and indirect fire, how to deal with improvised explosive devices, how to locate intruders, how to conduct post-attack recovery, and how to screen and search people and vehicles, and how to build and, more importantly, fight out of defensive positions.
The representative of the Chief of Air Staff is impressed with the outcome of the program.
We can confidently say that our goals and set objectives are being achieved. What we have witnessed today is a sure demonstration and testimony that the products of this center have been adequately prepared for deployment to any of the operational theaters across the country.
The certificates are handed to the soldiers, but what they should have at the back of their minds is that what they have learned today may be what will save their lives on the battlefront tomorrow.
What a day was in Parliament in Kenya today when opposition lawmakers stormed out of a session saying that they have been assaulted in the House. The chaos came during a debate on changing the electoral laws to allow manual vote counting for next year's presidential election. The opposition court coalition said one of its MPs had a bloody face following today's confrontations with other members of Parliament from the governing Jubilee Party. After leaving Parliament, some CORD MPs went to court to seek an injunction to block the changes. In their absence, government-allied MPs passed the amendments. When the fights first broke out on Tuesday evening, the live video feed from Parliament was cut and journalists were ordered out of the press gallery. Today's session was also not broadcast on national TV, and at least one journalist was briefly detained for filming proceedings. The government wants a backup to the electronic system, but the opposition says it is a way of rigging the poll. CORD has now called for a mass action on January 4th next year to protest over the new law. Now to a story we brought you yesterday. Imagine waking up to snow-covered surroundings. That may seem normal, that's if you're in other parts of the world, but not if you're in the Sahara. People put up images online showing snow-capped sand dunes. It's the first time it's happening in nearly 40 years. The amateur photographer Karim Bouchetta photographed the fleeting scene on Monday in the small Algerian town of Ain Sefra, which lies in the Atlas Mountains on the northern edge of the desert. In his images, a thin layer of snow rests on deep orange dunes where he said it stayed for about a day and forms whirling patterns where the slopes are too steep for it to settle. Snow was reportedly last seen in Ain Sefra in 1979 when a half-hour snowstorm stopped traffic. Joining me now to make sense of this environmental phenomenon is Greg Odogu. He joins me now from Abuja. He's an environmentalist. Greg, I'm glad you could join us on the program.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. What is the most possible explanation for this phenomenon?
Well, the only explanation we can give now is that it is an atmospheric phenomenon that shows that perhaps climate change may have some other side effects that we don't know about. Just like scientists have discovered that one of the things that caused the drought in California was the tree hours that is called a phenomenon that came upon, whereby pressure, some atmospheric pressure, upped the normal Pacific storm that was supposed to blow cold to the west coast of America. It was halted in the atmosphere, and because of it, there is so much drought in that place. I think we are now seeing an environmental phenomenon that is showing that perhaps what will happen in future in the Sahara Desert may be a snowstorm. Because if we look back, in 1979 was the last time we had this phenomenon, and it lasted for about half an hour. Now, what happened recently, a few days ago, lasted for a whole day. My theory about it is that scientists should go further to see whether there is a particular kind of atmospheric pressure that piles up precipitation. You know, because precipitation is what causes snow, and we know that it is a desert, so there could be no precipitation that will cause a snowfall. It could only be rain, which is not even constant. So, but if there is a particular anomaly in the atmosphere that piles up precipitation, then there could be a cycle whereby after some decades it may cause a deep snowstorm. And because this year it's a full day. In February 1979, it was just half an hour. Perhaps in some decades to come, it may be a whole season of snow.
Well, that may be a possibility. If this is happening, Greg, in one of the hottest places in the world, and then a few months back we reported a snow showing up in a town in Egypt that had never seen snow before. What are the odds that we could experience extreme temperatures like these in Nigeria?
Extreme weather conditions, it depends on the part of Nigeria you're looking at. We are already experiencing it. You can see that there is so much flood, which is intense rainfall in some parts of Nigeria. And in some other parts, like in the northern part, some people do not see rainfalls as they used to see because of the impact of climate change and global warming. And in Lagos, for instance, there is a delay in the normal Harmattan period just because it has to, the emissions of carbon through transportation may hold up the atmosphere and cause hold up the pressure, the cooling of the atmosphere through the northeast trade wind that normally brings Harmattan, and will cause intense heat. And some other parts of Nigeria, there is no rain at all. You don't experience rain. Like in the extreme northeast and northwest of the country, the usual rainy season doesn't start the way the usual period it starts. And we are looking at climate change, global warming to blame. But if we link it to what happened in Algeria, we may not be looking at snowstorm because it is quite out of this world. It is what we can only call anomaly, you understand? But we still have the effects of global warming staring us right in the face.
Well, you never know, Greg. You never know. We could have snow. I mean, if Egypt experienced snow in a town that's never seen it before, and if the Sahara Desert could also be experiencing snow, you can't rule it out, I guess. But you already explained, why Lagos is warmer and Abuja, where you are, is a lot cooler. But how should people react, to temperatures like this, especially in the season when we're expecting cooler weather, especially here in Lagos? We're expecting cooler weather, but what we have is, hot winds. And where you are, it's a lot cooler than the other parts of Nigeria.
Well, what is expected is just we have what we call adaptation. Climate change and global warming has called for so much adaptation measures to be implemented. And part of the adaptation measures is to change the way you think. You have to go green. You have to go green in your lifestyle. The government has to go green in their policies. The transportation has to go green. The transportation sector has to go green. And also, most importantly, farmers have to adapt. Because you see farmers that experience rain usually in certain parts of the time of the year. They have to adopt what is called climate smart agriculture. So climate smart agriculture is what is expected for such places, and so that even during the dry season, we have all-round farming methods through irrigation and drip irrigation and some other technologically advanced type of adaptation methods. Then coming down to our own lifestyle, for instance, how to adapt to our dress. The people that live in hot places, like in Lagos, they should not expose themselves to so much heat.
Just because it's hot.
Hydrated. Yeah. They have to drink a lot of water, and they have to make sure that the place they live are aerated, so that the impact of heat will not be so much on them. Without knowing it, they expose themselves to danger. So
Greg, thank you so much. A lot to talk about when it comes to the weather, and I know you're brewing with a lot of information. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. Well, still ahead on the program, a third of the world's victims of human trafficking, are children. That's according to the United Nations. Let's find out the report when we return.